Hi, thanks for joining me for today's REI 360 training. Today we're going to talk about how to determine what to charge for your property as far as a rental rate. If you got a rental property, how do you determine if you can charge $5,000 a month or $5 a month? It comes down to a couple simple factors, but the first of which is what we call market rent. Market rent is the idea that there's a certain amount of money that people in the marketplace are going to pay for a given property. Not all 3 bedrooms are worth the same. Not all, all 5-bedroom houses in the same city are worth the same as far as rent goes. Different neighborhoods, even different houses, are going to be able to demand more or less rent based on what the market says. The idea being that the more demand there is for a property, the more valuable the property is. Okay. One factor that I want to press very, push a lot on up here up front is that if you're advertising a rental property and you are not getting calls for that property, there's one of 2 reasons. Number one, you either did a really poor job of fixing it up and it is a dump, and people can see that with the pictures. If you have poor pictures, it's going to present poorly. Or number 2, it's priced too high. More times than not, the property is priced too high. I've gotten calls on really crappy properties if the properties were priced right, and that's that's really important. You don't want to take too little for a property either. If you price it too high, you get no phone calls. You price it too low, you get a ton of phone calls. You rent it really quickly, but man, you're leaving money on the table. Nobody wants to do that. So let's talk about how do we price out. What are some factors that are going to impact the value of a property? Now, I've broken these factors down into 2 different areas. First is going to be the structural factors, and the second are conditional. Structural factors are very similar to the types of things that you're traditionally going to be looking at when you're buying a house or you're evaluating an investment property. These are things that without a significant financial investment, you're not going to be able to change. Some of them, even with a significant financial investment, you're probably not going to be able to change. So first of all is going to be the size. Unless you put an addition on the back of a house, or on another story up on the top, you're not going to be able to change the size of the property. So, oftentimes people are looking for a little bit larger of a property. They're looking for a larger property. They're willing to pay more for a little bit more space. That's a contributing factor. The second is going to be the layout. For one reason or another, there's some people that love ranchers. There's others that love row homes or townhouses or colonials or Cape Cods or whatever. In different regions of the country, different types of properties are more attractive. They're more in demand. And because of that, they're going to rent or sell for more money. And so, this is another contributing factor. The number of bedrooms and bathrooms in a property is certainly going to have an impact. This kind of goes hand in hand with the size. Traditionally, the 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom house is the most attractive in the marketplace. These are our bread and butter properties. And that's because the average family has 2.3 children. That leaves one bedroom for parents, 1 bedroom for one kid, 1 bedroom for the other kid. Everybody shares a bathroom, and it's great for a rental. More bedrooms can oftentimes demand more money. 2 bedrooms, it's going to limit the amount of people that are willing to rent a 2-bedroom house, or a 2-bedroom, 1-bedroom apartment, whatever. But depending on the size, there's going to be either more or less people that are interested in renting that type of property. That's going to have an impact on how much you can charge rent. The condition of the property. If the property is in good condition, if you've kept it up, if it's it's brand new, you're certainly going to be able to demand more for for an updated rehabbed property than you would for the same house right down the street that hasn't been remodeled in 30 years. People are going to be more attracted to that remodeled property than they will on the dated house down the road. That's something to keep in mind. Again, this is something that might be a conditional factor. It just really depends on how much work we're talking about. I'm trying to look at without significant financial investment here. These things can't be changed. The location, what's real estate? Location, location, location. That's a huge factor. In my city where I invest, a few blocks can mean the difference between an extra $1,000 a month, for a property on a rental basis. So that's going to be a huge impact. you got to be sensitive to these things when you're advertising a property. You also have to be realistic about them. If if you're targeting student rentals and your house is too far away from the university for students to commute easily, you're not going to be able to get top rents like you would have if the house was right next door to the college. So it's something to keep in mind. These last three are conditional factors. These are things that without a major investment, you can manipulate, you can change, you can move around to further attract more and better rental candidates who will pay more money and pay it more consistently. So amenities, what am I talking about? Amenities are the things that you want to point out in the house. It might be a new kitchen. That's a big financial investment, but these are things that you also want to take a look at when you're purchasing the property. Is there a backyard? Is there a deck on the house? Is there an area? Could you invest a few dollars to make a little patio area in the back of the property that would be attractive? A nice place to have a little, to put a grill or put a little a table to sit out back and enjoy the summer, the summer months. Does the place have hardwood floors throughout the property? For $1,000 or $2,000, you can refinish those floors, and it can have a heck of an impact on the way that property appears, the attractiveness of that property. These are the types of things, it might be carpet, it might be a ceiling fan. These are the types of things that you can highlight in your advertising, but also they're things that are attractive to a tenant. They're things that they can emotionally attach to that property that will differentiate your property from someone else's, and also maybe loosen some purse strings. Okay. Utilities. In different areas of the country and in different, there are different traditions and, of what's expected, what the landlord will provide or what the tenant will provide. In larger apartment complexes, oftentimes most of the utilities, the heating and air conditioning and obviously lighting and things like that are all tied to the electrical bill. And then the complex takes care of the water bill. So they'll advertise, water included, or you only pay your electric bill or something like that. That's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about utilities. With my rental properties, I like to have each utility metered per unit so that I don't have somebody telling me, so that I can save on a 3-unit building. I've got 3 heaters, 3 hot water heaters, 3 electrical boxes. I've got, unfortunately in my area, there's one water meter for the building, but I put a flat rate on all of my apartments for a monthly flat rate for water as well, so that each person in the building is responsible for their own utilities. But if you want to attract more people, you want to charge a little bit more money, you know what? All utilities are included. That's an option. It's a factor that's going to impact how much you're going to charge. One reason I like to have everything metered out is because then I can advertise the property a little bit less expensively. If I know that they're responsible for the gas and electric bill and I'm going to charge them a monthly water fee, what I can do is this. I advertise the property for $625. A similar competitor's apartment is renting for $650. So of course they're going to call me. But as part of the lease, I'm also going to include a $50 per month water charge. So in essence, I'm making $675 a month for a similar apartment that would rent for $650. It's just, it helps with the marketing. It attracts more people, allows me to get more money and get more people through the door. Okay. The last thing on this conditional factors list is timing. Timing is can be a really big factor. When I first got into the business, ran into this investor with about 80 rental properties, and he swore up and down that because of the way he managed his properties, he was able to limit the number of the number of days that any of his units were vacant to less than 10, and not 10 per unit, but 10 for his entire portfolio for the prior year. Now, looking back, I'm guessing that he's probably full of it, but maybe not, because what he told me is that he was able to time things just right. If he was forced to have someone move into a property in the wintertime or in a bad time of year, he would not write a 1-year lease. He would write the lease to end in the spring or in the early fall, so that he could be part of, he would have his units available during times when most people are looking for rental properties. And it was really smart. It really made a lot of sense to me. So this is something that you got to think about. When you're buying a property or you're renovating or you're putting something on the market, you got to look around and you got to say, okay, is this a time when most people are going to be tied up and not really wanting to move? If there's going to be a foot of snow on the ground, it's really going to be a detriment. That's why winter is not such a great time to rent properties. Also, from the beginning of December through about mid-January, it's really an awful time. It's not just cold, at least in my region, but the holidays are there. Nobody wants to be packing up boxes when they're thinking about putting up the Christmas tree or putting up lights outside or, just enjoying their family for the holidays. That's something to keep in mind. Some other bad timing or bad times during the year are at the beginning and the end of the summer, because traditionally that's the beginning and the end of the school year. If kids are involved, nobody wants to pull their kids out of school, and change schools halfway through the year. So those are two times when, you can really capitalize at the end of the year. These are people that if they're going to be moving, now's the time to have a property available. And likewise, before the school year, if they're going to be moving, you want to have properties available at that time. Right there in the heart of the summer, July is a really tough month to rent properties. A lot of people are on vacation, other things going on. That's something to keep in mind, okay? So timing is a big deal. I'm going to put a big asterisk here, and more than any other part of the rental business, when you rent to students, timing is a huge deal. In my market, between November, the beginning of November and the end of January, all of the student housing is rented for the entire next year. And that's from August to August. So if you miss that window, you could have a property sitting for an entire year vacant. It's a terrible situation. And it's something that you got to keep in mind. If you miss that window, you better be willing to drop price and anticipate, taking a little bit less of a lower rental rate in exchange for just getting the place filled until next year when you can rent to students again. Okay, so these are some factors that are going to impact your price. Now that we've kind of had an evaluation of our property, number of bedrooms and bathrooms, the size, the layout, the condition, the location, amenities, utilities, the timing, all that kind of stuff. We got a handle on our property, our unit. Now it's time to go out, start looking at the numbers. But where do we start? It's a good question. On a lot of my other trainings, I talk about defining your target market, your farm area. Well, this is a time when that's going to come into play. You ought to know your market. Wherever you're investing, you got to know that neighborhood. You got to know it really well. But you know what? There are some times when, if you've got 3 or 4 rental properties, or maybe you have 5 or 6 in a certain area, but you do such a great job that your tenants end up staying for 5 or 6 years, of course the rental rate's going to change. You're going to have to get reacclimated to what that property is worth in the current market. So one way you can do that is to farm your target market. Get in the car, start driving around, look for rent signs. When you see them, call them, talk to the landlord. Hey, I'm interested in renting this property. How many bedrooms and bathrooms? How big is the place? What kind of condition? How long has it been empty? All this kind of stuff. Get information. Do that with every place that you can find in your target market, so that now you're looking at your competition. I've got hardwood floors. This guy has hardwood floors. I have 3 bedrooms. They have 3 bedrooms. They're right down the street from each other. They're pretty comparable properties, and he's asking $900 a month. Am I realistic at $1,100 a month? Who knows? It's something you got to think about. This is my jumping off point. Next, I'm going to go to, I can look on Craigslist. I can see, what is selling there. Craigslist, within the last year, added a search function to their site. This is really fantastic. It's a map search where you can actually look at a geographic location, see all the properties that are on Craigslist for rent, in a certain area, how much they rent for, how much they're asking, pictures, amenities, all that kind of stuff. It's really good stuff. So I would look on Craigslist. If you are a real estate agent or you typically work with a real estate agent, the MLS may be an option for you. Typically, MLS is a good option for higher priced properties at, $1,000 or $1,500 plus. On the lower end, most of the time, these are private rentals because, a lot of times agents won't take the listing for or want the listing for an $800 rental because they're getting, you know, a few $100s for throwing people in their car and driving them all over creation, you know, for $100, $200 for a lease. So it's something to keep in mind. But if you are on the higher end, this is a good place to look. Other landlords, hey, real estate investors have friends who are real estate investors. Landlords have friends that are landlords, you know. This is something that you need to know about. You call up your friend, hey, what do you think this place could rent for? What are you seeing in the market? Are rent prices going up? Have they gone down? What's going on? If you don't know anybody with rental properties in your specific area, go to a local RIA, ask around, you know, talk to different people, and you'll be able to get some feedback. You also hear a lot of people flapping their gums and complaining about how terrible it is to be a landlord, and you know, you just smile and sit back and say, yeah, I'm going to move somebody in for the next 6 years and they're going to pay my mortgage. So, yeah. The other nice outlet here is online resources. Online, you know, I listed 3 here. There's probably 1,000 different sites that can give you an idea of what things are renting for. Each one of these has, you know, their attributes, their good parts and bad parts. However, these are not human beings. What these sites are doing is they're taking a conglomeration of information and spitting out 1 or 2 numbers to you. That doesn't necessarily mean that's what you can rent for. Trulia and Zillow are fine. They have a lot of data, but they also miss a lot of data. If you are comfortable with them, you like what they're telling you, and you know, it's realistic for your market, go for it. I prefer Renometer.com. Renometer.com is nice because it pulls information from a lot of different sources. It also can it'll, you know, kind of give you it looks like a thermometer, a big circle thermometer, and you've got an arrow that goes up, and basically you go in there, you give them the address, what you're going to propose to charge rent, how many bedrooms and bathrooms, and it'll shoot back where your proposal is in comparison to the rest of the market. It gives the top 20%, the lower 20%, and then the 80% in between. I typically find that the median price range that they put in there is pretty darn realistic, and sometimes it's even a little bit low. So it's a good place to bounce some numbers off, but it's not the only place to go. My little rent hack is a 3-step process. What I do is I take the address, I pump it into Renometer.com, it kicks back, and then I take a look at the map that's there. And I'll see, okay, these are renting for such and such. The nice thing with Renometer also is it gives you a map, and it'll give you the number of bedrooms and bathrooms for each, on the map it'll be little bullet points for each property that actually rented. They use actual rentals, not listings, to determine the amount. So you click on the button, it says bedrooms, bathrooms, rental amount, date that it rented for each one of them. So I'll go and take a look at that information. With that in mind, I'm going to go to Craigslist. And on Craigslist, I'm going to make 3 ads. 3 ads that I'm going to post are going to be based on the data that I'm pulling from Craigslist and from Renometer. If Renometer is telling me, okay, there's the median rental price is $750, what I'm probably going to do is I'm going to take the top 20%. That's like $900 to $1,100, and I'm going to search with that price range in mind. I'm looking for every listing between $900 and $1,100. If I go in there and there's like 2 or 3 properties, I'm just going to pass. Not interested. Okay, I'm going to cut that top 20% off. Then I'm going to search with my middle range, and you're probably asking yourself, what are you talking about? What I'm talking about is when you go to Renometer, they will give you the top 20%, the median, 60%, and then the lower 20%. I'm going to be searching Craigslist with those 3 different price points to see what my competition looks like. Then I'm going to evaluate, you know, okay, these properties in the middle are not nearly as nice as my property. The ones on the high end are okay. You know, they're a little bit nicer than my property, but we're somewhere in there. I'm probably gonna, I'll figure that I'll probably rent it for, you know, the higher end of that median price range. So then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take that data and I'm going to split test. For just a few dollars, you can get a vanity number from, I mean, you Google this online, you get a vanity number for local number, get 3 of them, have them all forward to your cell phone, and usually you can put some kind of message so that when the phone rings, like I have one for an emergency line for my company. If somebody has an emergency, they call the emergency line, and my phone rings 911. It's the same sort of thing with these vanity numbers, where maybe you have a 001, 002, and 003, and you have 3 ads with 3 different phone numbers for the same property at 3 different price points. This is a way for you to evaluate how much you can get for rent, what the right price point is for your property at this time. If the high end rings just as much as the middle, get rid of the lower 2 ads and just advertise with the high end. If the median rings like crazy and the high end gets nothing, you know that your price point is somewhere in that median price range. So the idea is that we want to get feedback, and feedback to see how our property stacks up and with respect to the rest of the competition. We want to get the most that we can for our property without limiting ourselves to the types of people that are going to be applying for the property. So I hope that was a pretty good explanation of how to determine what your property will rent for. And that's it for today. I appreciate you joining me, and I wish you the best of luck in your real estate investing until we see each other again.